There are places in the world where silence speaks louder than sound, where the sheer scale of the land makes one feel both small and deeply connected to something greater. The Himalayas are such a place. They stretch across the horizon like an endless fortress, their snowy peaks piercing the sky and catching the first light of dawn in dazzling brilliance. To those who gaze upon them, they are not merely mountains but living presences, eternal guardians whose ridges and valleys carry the memory of Earth's ancient past. For the people who dwell in their shadow, the Himalayas are more than geography. They are gods, protectors, and storytellers. Rivers that flow from their glaciers nurture civilizations across Asia, feeding rice fields, orchards, and cities far beyond their icy summits. Winds that swirl around their ridges shape entire climates, bringing monsoon rains to the fertile plains below. The mountains dictate the rhythm of life for millions, while holding within their remote valleys a solitude that seems to exist outside of time. But the Himalayas are also a place of dreams. They have lured poets, pilgrims, and wanderers who came seeking wisdom, peace, or the ultimate challenge of endurance. Their slopes have tested the strength of climbers, humbled the arrogance of explorers, and inspired spiritual seekers who see in their icy silence the very essence of divinity. To stand before them is to encounter not just rock and snow, but a mystery so vast that words often fail. This journey into the Himalayas is more than a description of landscapes. It is an exploration of origins and legends, of life and faith, of human aspiration and environmental fragility. The story of these mountains is, in many ways, the story of humanity itself, our struggle, our resilience, and our unending search for meaning. The Himalayas are not only the highest mountain range in the world, they are also one of its youngest. Their story began tens of millions of years ago, when the Indian subcontinent, once part of a vast southern landmass, drifted northward across the ancient Tethys Ocean. Moving at the slow pace of a few centimeters per year, this massive plate of land eventually collided with the Eurasian continent. The impact was cataclysmic, creating forces so immense that the Earth's crust buckled and folded upward, giving birth to a chain of mountains whose peaks still rise to this day. Unlike older ranges that have been worn down by time, the Himalayas remain sharp, jagged, and restless, evidence of a geological process still underway beneath the surface. This collision continues, and the mountains remain alive, inching higher each year. That restless energy is also responsible for the earthquakes that occasionally shake the region, reminders that the Himalayas are not static monuments, but a living system in constant motion. The rocks that form their peaks tell a story written over eons, with fossils of seashells sometimes discovered near their summits. Astonishing evidence that these frozen ridges once lay beneath a warm, ancient ocean. Stretching across 5 nations, India, Nepal, Bhutan, China, and Pakistan, the Himalayas extend for more than 2,400 kilometers, creating a barrier so vast it separates entire climates and cultures. On their southern side, the land drops toward the fertile plains of the Ganges and Brahmaputra, rich in rain and vegetation. To the north lies the arid Tibetan Plateau, stark and windswept, its high deserts shaped by thin air and icy winds. The Himalayas stand as a dramatic frontier between these two worlds, capturing monsoon clouds from the Indian Ocean and ensuring that the lands below remain fertile and green. Without them, much of South Asia would be desert. The mountains themselves are arranged in a kind of layered architecture. The towering giants, the Great Himalayas, form the innermost chain, crowned with the tallest peaks on Earth, including Mount Everest at 8,849 meters and Kanchenjunga at 8,586 meters. These giants, perpetually snow-covered, are visible symbols of Earth's might. Beyond them stretch ranges of lesser height, with rugged valleys, forested slopes, and fast-flowing rivers. At the outermost edges lie the lower hills, rolling landscapes that act as a bridge between the mountains and the plains. Each layer reveals a different face of the Himalayas, from icy solitude to vibrant, human-inhabited valleys. From their glaciers and snowfields emerge the great rivers of Asia. The Indus, the Ganges, and the Brahmaputra, among many others, begin their journeys in these high places, winding downward through steep gorges before spreading across the plains. These rivers are lifelines, not just for the mountain dwellers, but for hundreds of millions of people downstream. They irrigate crops, power cities, and sustain entire civilizations. Without the Himalayas, the history of Asia would be unrecognizable. Yet their scale is not measured only in height or distance, but in contrasts. In the lower valleys, lush forests thrive in warm, humid air, while just a few thousand meters above, alpine meadows bloom briefly in summer before surrendering to ice and snow. The transitions from subtropical heat to Arctic cold occur within days of travel, a vertical journey through climates that elsewhere would require crossing continents. These abrupt changes create landscapes of extraordinary diversity, both in nature and in human culture. For scientists, the Himalayas remain a vast natural laboratory, a place to study the workings of plate tectonics, glaciology, and climate systems. For those who live among them, they are simply home, shaping every aspect of life, from architecture to agriculture. Villages cling to terraced hillsides, roads wind precariously along cliffs, and entire traditions have evolved in response to the rhythm of the mountains. For travelers who arrive for the first time, the sight of their snowbound peaks against a clear sky is unforgettable, an image that captures both the beauty and the power of the natural world. In their geography and their formation, the Himalayas embody the drama of Earth itself. They are a reminder that the planet is never still, that continents move and seas vanish, that mountains rise and fall over epochs. To stand among them is to glimpse that ancient, ongoing process, to feel, if only for a moment, the breath of a living Earth. The Himalayas are not simply a wall of stone. They are a climate maker, a living force that shapes weather patterns across half the world. Rising like an impenetrable barrier between the Indian subcontinent and the Tibetan plateau, these mountains dictate the rhythm of the seasons, summoning rains, blocking winds, and storing ice that becomes rivers. Without them, the lands to the south would be unrecognizable, stripped of the monsoon rains that sustain life for millions. As the summer sun heats the plains of India, moist air is drawn northward from the Indian Ocean. When these warm monsoon winds encounter the towering front of the Himalayas, they are forced upward, cooling as they rise and releasing torrents of rain. The southern slopes are drenched, becoming lush and fertile, while the northern side, shielded by the barrier, remains dry and austere. This contrast between abundance and scarcity is one of the Himalayas' defining features. To the south, rice paddies stretch in endless green, fed by the monsoon's gift. To the north, the vast expanse of Tibet lies in arid silence, a high desert sculpted by thin air and bitter winds. Within the Himalayas themselves, climate shifts dramatically with altitude. In the lower valleys, subtropical warmth fills the air. Crops of rice, sugarcane, and tea thrive in soils enriched by seasonal rains. A few thousand meters higher, the air cools and temperate forests spread across the slopes, alive with oak, pine, and rhododendron. Higher still, where the tree line fades, alpine meadows burst briefly into color during the short summer months, painted with wildflowers that endure only for a fleeting season before the snows return. Beyond these meadows lies a realm of eternal ice, where glaciers move slowly, carving the rock beneath and feeding the rivers that descend to the plains. Winter brings silence and hardship. Villages at higher altitudes become cut off as mountain passes fill with snow, isolating communities for months. The temperature plunges, and winds sweep across the ridges with unrelenting force. Yet for those who live in these harsh landscapes, adaptation is as natural as breathing. Homes are built with thick walls, fires are tended with care, and life continues according to rhythms set by the mountains. The ecosystems that flourish here are as diverse as the climates. From tropical forests alive with insects and birds to barren snowfields where only lichens survive, the Himalayas hold an astonishing variety of life within a relatively narrow span of geography. This vertical layering of habitats, what scientists call altitudinal zonation, creates one of the richest ecological tapestries on Earth. The Himalayas are often called the water towers of Asia. Their glaciers store immense reserves of ice, slowly releasing water into rivers that sustain nearly 2 billion people across the continent. Yet this natural system, perfected over millennia, is fragile. Rising global temperatures are causing glaciers to retreat at alarming rates, threatening to disrupt the balance of water and life. The climate here is a reminder of interconnectedness, where a change at the highest peaks ripples down to affect millions in the plains below. To walk through the Himalayas is to experience not one climate, but many, stacked one upon another, each with its own character, its own beauty, and its own challenges. They are mountains, yes, but also worlds within worlds, ecosystems as varied and dramatic as the peaks that cradle them. If the Himalayas are a kingdom of stone and snow, they are also a sanctuary of life. Across their slopes and valleys, an astonishing wealth of flora and fauna thrives, adapting to the extremes of altitude, temperature, and season. This is one of the most biodiverse regions on Earth, a living museum where ancient lineages of plants and animals coexist with rare species found nowhere else. In the lower foothills, where the air is warm and the rains plentiful, forests stretch in deep green canopies. Sal trees rise tall and straight, their leaves rustling in the humid breeze, while bamboo groves form dense thickets that shelter both animals and humans. Orchids cling to mossy trunks, their blossoms painting the forest with flashes of purple, yellow, and red. Medicinal plants, long used in Ayurveda and Tibetan healing traditions, grow in abundance, their properties passed down through generations of knowledge. As one climbs higher, the forests change character. Oaks and chestnuts dominate the middle slopes, their branches heavy with lichens and moss. Higher still, conifers, pines, firs, and the mighty deodar cedar stand as guardians of the mountain air, their scent mingling with the cool mist. During spring, the hillsides explode with rhododendrons, their fiery blooms igniting the landscape in shades of crimson, pink, and white. For a brief season, it is as if the mountains themselves are aflame with color. At the edge of the tree line, the world changes again. Alpine meadows, free of trees but alive with grasses and wildflowers, emerge like hidden jewels. Edelweiss and blue poppies bloom in defiance of the cold, their delicate forms braving winds and frost. These meadows are pastures for yaks and sheep, whose grazing has been woven into the livelihoods of mountain communities for centuries. Beyond this fragile zone lies the stark domain of glaciers and rock, where life is scarce, yet not absent. Even here, mosses and hardy lichens find footholds, silent testaments to resilience. Among the fauna of the Himalayas, few are as iconic as the snow leopard. Elusive and ghost-like, it prowls the rocky heights, blending perfectly with its environment. To spot one is considered a blessing, a rare glimpse into nature's most secretive predator. The red panda, with its russet fur and masked face, lives in the bamboo forests, its gentle presence a symbol of the fragile balance that sustains Himalayan ecosystems. Bird life adds to the richness. The Himalayan monal, Nepal's national bird, dazzles with iridescent feathers that shimmer in the sunlight, rivaling the colors of any gemstone. Eagles and vultures circle high above, riding the thermals that rise from valleys below. In the lower forests, pheasants, parakeets, and countless songbirds create a constant chorus that fills the air with life. The foothills are also home to larger animals. Elephants, tigers, and one-horned rhinoceroses wander the dense jungles at the base of the range, linking the Himalayas to the broader ecosystems of the Indian subcontinent. In the high plateaus of Tibet, herds of wild yak and Tibetan antelope graze in wind-swept silence, completing the picture of a land that supports both abundance and scarcity. Every species here plays its part in a delicate web of survival. From the humblest insect to the largest predator, life in the Himalayas is a story of adaptation, endurance, and beauty. To encounter this flora and fauna is to witness nature's artistry at its most diverse and most determined. These mountains, often thought of only as stone and snow, are in truth vibrant realms of life, worlds where nature, against all odds, thrives. The Himalayas have never been mere mountains to the people who live in their shadow. For countless generations, they have been sacred, imbued with divinity and mystery, a living bridge between the earthly and the eternal. To gaze upon their snow-capped peaks is to feel a profound humility, a recognition that some forces in life are greater than human comprehension. Their presence is woven into the myths, rituals, and daily lives of millions who have called these valleys and slopes home. Hinduism, the dominant faith across much of northern India and Nepal, reveres the Himalayas as the eternal abode of the gods. Mount Kailash, in particular, is considered the throne of Lord Shiva, the god of destruction and transformation, whose meditative silence presides over the universe. Pilgrims undertake arduous journeys to circumambulate its base, believing that mere proximity to the mountain purifies the soul and brings spiritual merit. The rivers that flow from the Himalayas are themselves sacred, the Ganges and Yamuna embodying purity and sustenance. In their glacial origins, devotees see both physical and metaphysical nourishment, a connection between heaven, mountain, and plain. For Buddhists, the Himalayas are equally sacred. The high plateaus and hidden valleys are dotted with monasteries, where monks have preserved teachings and traditions for centuries. Prayer flags flutter across ridges, carrying the hopes and prayers of communities, and the sound of chanting drifts through valleys like an invisible thread linking earth to sky. The concept of Shangri-La, the mythical hidden paradise of peace and harmony, was inspired by these remote and sublime landscapes, a place where human aspiration meets the stillness of the mountains. Indigenous peoples, too, view the Himalayas with reverence and respect. Their myths speak of mountains as ancestors, spirits, and guardians. The landscape shapes their festivals, their art, and their agricultural practices. Terraced fields cling to slopes, designed not only for practical farming, but as a testament to harmony with nature. Every tree planted, every water channel carved, is part of an intricate dialogue with the land. These traditions have persisted for centuries, evolving alongside the mountains yet never attempting to conquer them. Spiritual seekers from across the world have come to the Himalayas in search of wisdom, solitude, and enlightenment. Yogis meditate in caves, seeking the quiet that only the mountains can offer. Pilgrims traverse treacherous paths to reach sacred shrines. Travelers report that even the air seems different, carrying a weightless sense of clarity and introspection. Here, amidst jagged peaks and rushing rivers, the Himalayas teach lessons that cannot be learned elsewhere. The value of patience, the necessity of humility, and the power of endurance. Music, dance, and folklore reflect this profound spiritual connection. From the haunting strains of Tibetan horns echoing across valleys to the vibrant dances of Nepali festivals, the mountains are ever present in cultural expression. Each season brings a rhythm dictated by nature, a reminder that life in the Himalayas is a dialogue between human endeavor and the sublime forces of the earth. Even architecture, monasteries perched on cliffs, temples carved into rock, and homes built to withstand snow and wind, is shaped by both necessity and reverence. In the Himalayas, spirituality and survival coexist. Life is dictated by the seasons, the rains, and the snows, yet it is enriched by stories, rituals, and the pursuit of meaning. Mountains are not merely obstacles to be scaled or resources to be used. They are teachers, companions, and witnesses to the unfolding of human life. Every peak, river, and valley holds a story, a lesson, and a history, making the Himalayas a living cathedral of both nature and spirit. To walk through these lands is to step into a world where the sacred and the everyday intertwine seamlessly, where the boundaries between human life and divine presence blur. The Himalayas are at once a challenge, a refuge, and a sanctuary, reminding all who enter them that true reverence lies not in conquest but in understanding and coexistence. For centuries, the Himalayas remained a mystery to the outside world. Their colossal peaks were known only to local communities, revered as sacred and often avoided for the sheer impossibility of ascent. To outsiders, the mountains were a distant, untamed realm, a symbol of both awe and fear. The modern era of Himalayan exploration began in the 19th century, when British surveyors embarked on the Great Trigonometrical Survey of India. Through painstaking measurement and calculation, they began to map the vast range, discovering peaks of unimaginable height and recording details that had been hidden from the wider world for millennia. Among their revelations was the world's highest mountain, later named Mount Everest in honor of surveyor George Everest. The lure of the Himalayas extended beyond cartography. Explorers, adventurers, and scientists were drawn by the promise of discovery, yet the mountains proved relentless. Early expeditions faced blizzards, avalanches, and freezing temperatures that claimed lives and tested the limits of endurance. Maps were incomplete, knowledge of local conditions limited, and communication with native communities often challenging. Yet each journey contributed to a growing understanding of the region's geography, climate, and ecology. Mountaineering in the Himalayas reached a defining moment in the 20th century. The peaks of Everest, Annapurna, and K2 became symbolic summits, representing the ultimate human challenge. In 1953, Sir Edmund Hillary of New Zealand and Tenzing Norgay, a Sherpa of Nepal, achieved the first confirmed ascent of Everest, marking an era in which the Himalayas were no longer merely a distant marvel, but a stage for human ambition and endurance. Their triumph was not merely personal. It celebrated the skills, courage, and resilience of the Sherpa people, whose knowledge of the mountains proved indispensable. Since then, the Himalayas have attracted climbers from around the globe, each seeking both adventure and self-discovery. Expeditions require meticulous planning, yet the mountains always demand humility. Avalanches, crevasses, and sudden storms serve as constant reminders that nature cannot be tamed. Peaks that have been summited repeatedly continue to inspire awe, their heights remaining daunting even to the most experienced climbers. Beyond the feats of mountaineering, historical exploration has also revealed the intricate connections between the mountains and human culture. Trade routes once traversed the high passes, linking remote valleys to distant civilizations. Pilgrims journeyed to sacred shrines, often braving treacherous terrain to fulfill spiritual vows. Scientific studies examined glaciers, rivers, and geology, unveiling the mountains' role in shaping regional climate and sustaining life far beyond their slopes. The history of exploration and mountaineering in the Himalayas is thus a story of duality: human courage and humility, ambition and respect. These mountains test every assumption, rewarding those who prepare, adapt, and endure, yet reminding all that they are not conquerable in any true sense. To stand on a Himalayan summit is not merely to achieve a goal. It is to witness the grandeur of Earth, to feel the pulse of millennia, and to understand the delicate balance between human aspiration and natural majesty. The Himalayas, despite their grandeur, are fragile. Rising global temperatures are causing glaciers to retreat at alarming rates, threatening the rivers that billions rely upon for drinking water, irrigation, and energy. Forests on the lower slopes are being cleared for agriculture and development, while overgrazing and unplanned infrastructure projects destabilize the soil, triggering landslides and flash floods. Tourism, though vital for local economies, has left a mark. Base camps, littered with waste and discarded equipment, remind the world that human presence, however temporary, can leave lasting scars. Yet hope endures. Conservation initiatives have gained momentum, combining science with traditional knowledge. Protected areas safeguard endangered species like the snow leopard and red panda, while reforestation projects help stabilize slopes and restore ecosystems. Communities are increasingly involved, balancing economic needs with environmental responsibility. International efforts focus on sustainable tourism, climate monitoring, and cross-border cooperation to protect rivers and wildlife. The Himalayas have survived millions of years of change. Their resilience is remarkable. With careful stewardship, humanity can ensure that these mountains continue to sustain life, inspire awe, and preserve the delicate balance between nature and culture for generations to come. The Himalayas rise beyond imagination, mountains of stone, snow, and spirit. They are archives of Earth's history and the canvases of human faith, teaching humility, resilience, and wonder. To gaze upon them is to feel both small and connected, to recognize the pulse of life and time itself. These mountains are more than landscapes. They are eternal guardians, watching over rivers, forests, and communities. As long as they stand, crowned in snow and silence, they will inspire awe, nurture life, and remind all who encounter them of the enduring beauty, power, and mystery of our world.